24-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder this morning after Oxford police ended a 14-hour standoff with a gunman. Thames Valley Police updated the public on Tuesday, saying the siege on Norfolk Road in Paradise Square had ended peacefully shortly before 3 a.m. The gunman, who has not been named but is from Oxford, is currently in police custody. One person was treated by paramedics at the scene for injuries that aren't life-threatening, but no further details were given. All closed roads have been reopened, but a small scene watch will remain in place. The area was put on lockdown around 1 p.m. on Monday after several shots were fired from the residential property and armed response officers returned fire. Scroll down for video. Armed police were locked in a standoff with a gunman after a dramatic shootout in Oxford city centre overnight. A 24-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after Oxford police ended a 14-hour standoff with a gunman. Thames Valley Police updated the public on Tuesday morning shortly before 6:30 am. Saying the siege had ended but that a small scene watch would remains in place. Norfolk Road in Paradise Square was put on lockdown around 1 p.m. on Monday after several shots were fired from a residential property and armed response officers returned fire. One person was treated by paramedics at the scene for injuries that aren't life-threatening, but no further details were given. Superintendent Joe Kickman, Oxford's local policing area commander, said in a statement, "I would like to thank the community for their understanding and patience while we work to resolve the incident safely. Officers are particularly grateful for the support of members of the public and local businesses while the investigation is ongoing. People traveling into Oxford should not experience any further disruption." No further details of the gunman were given. Armed officers descended on the residential property at around 1:15 p.m. on Monday after witnesses reported hearing up to 5 gunshots. Members of the public were warned to avoid the area, but police say the incident was not being treated as terrorism. A witness said more loud bangs were heard later on Monday night, which sounded like gunfire, followed by shouting. Speaking to the Press Association just after 10 p.m. on Monday, she added, "The situation is very much ongoing." A cordon was rolled out, blocking access to Paradise Square, where the standoff was taking place, and residents were warned to stay inside. Neighboring Paradise Street and Castle Street were also shut, and residents were told they couldn't return to their homes in that area. Related articles. Previous one. Next shocking brawl breaks out at Goodwood as one racegoer kicks girl, 15, has to spit out her teeth and now can only eat. Share this article. Share. Norfolk Road was on lockdown after shots were fired from a residential property in Paradise Square before armed response officers returned fire. Armed officers descended on the residential property at around 1:15 p.m. on Monday after witnesses reported hearing up to 5 gunshots. A cordon was rolled out blocking access to Paradise Square, where the standoff was taking place, and residents were warned to stay inside. There was a heavy police presence near Paradise Square where armed officers were locked in a standoff with a gunman. A convoy of masked policemen were seen entering the cordon around the Oxford shooting. David Gallagher, a spokesperson for South Central Ambulance Service, said one person was being treated in an ambulance near the scene for injuries that are not life-threatening, with at least 4 individuals spread between 2 vehicles. He was not able to give details about the injuries, but said, "We have another ambulance and a rapid response vehicle at the scene. Further resources are en route to support those already at the scene, but there are currently no further patients." At about 5 p.m. paramedics were seen carrying a stretcher of medical equipment towards Paradise Square. A line of ambulances were parked in Castle Street. Fire engines, police cars and sniffer dogs were also seen at the scene, which is just a 10-minute walk from Oxford University's Pembroke College. Police helicopters were seen overhead as well, circling the area in a bid to get information on the siege. A nearby resident, who did not want to be named, said he first heard two loud bangs early in the morning but thought it was just bank holiday fireworks later that day. He said he witnessed the start of the altercation between an armed man and the police, during which he heard around 20 shots exchanged. I saw how easy he got down from his balcony and I was terrified for a second, thinking he was going to come get me. He said, I was frightened. He was shooting from the balcony and then he climbed down the balcony. He was in the gardens and police were kicking the back doors to other gardens trying to get him. And that's when they shot him in the head, I think, and in the chest. Then he climbed back up and shot again. I could hear a female negotiator and an armed responseman trying to get him to put his hands up, let go of the gun, keep his hands on show and things like that. A gunman exchanged fire with police in a dramatic shootout that led to a number of streets in Oxford being sealed off on Bank Holiday Monday. Armed response. Officers descended on a residential property in Paradise Square after witnesses reported hearing gunshots at around 1:15 p.m. The resident said he heard a man repeating that he needed medical treatment before getting really angry, shouting, roaring at them, the police. He said the whole street had been evacuated and families were getting anxious about where they would be able to spend the night as darkness fell. One resident in Paradise Square, who asked not to be named, said, I was coming home with my kids and police wouldn't let us into the street. Flats have been evacuated and police were trying to talk someone down from their balcony. I heard about 5 gunshots and there was an armed response. The resident added he was eventually allowed back into his house but was told to stay inside. A woman, who asked not to be named, said the gunfire was scary, but added the incident became almost surreal as the siege went on. She was sat on her balcony when she heard loud bangs, shouting and dogs barking on Monday afternoon. After a second round it became apparent these were gunshots, so I rushed inside. She told the press association there was a couple more shots. 3 spurts in total, still a lot of shouting and barking. I heard a man shout, show me your hands, repeatedly. The shouting continued and only quieted down an hour later or so. Between now and then there have been bursts of shouting, barks and helicopters. The entire area outside my flat is sealed off, and there is a police officer with a dog stationed a few meters from the balcony. I've heard no more shots since though. Just a 10-minute walk from Oxford University's Pembroke College, ambulances, fire engines, police cars and dog units were seen at the scene. The armed response unit was deployed to the city centre and officers were seen combing the area with sniffer dogs after reports that a man had access to a firearm. Shots were fired at officers from the property and they returned fire, Thames Valley Police said on Twitter. One person was treated by paramedics at the scene for injuries that aren't life-threatening, but no further details were given. Dean Dwyer, 21, added that he was on his way to meet friends at the pub when he heard police officers shouting. He said, they shouted, armed police, show me your hands, quite a few times, so I went into the pub and that's when I heard the gunshots. Then they asked us to move along the street quite hastily. Janet Borgerson was in the nearby Hotel Malmaison when she heard explosive cracks she thought were holiday festivities before another series of loud bangs. I noticed hotel bar staff ushering people inside, she told the press association. Again, I thought the second round were firecrackers. Ms. Borgerson, who is visiting the city from America, said guests were later told by an armed officer that they were perfectly safe and allowed to leave the hotel because the shooting was directly behind the hotel block in which my room is. I did feel worried that someone with a larger weapon could be a threat, but the police were quickly on site and after 45 minutes or so inside and then briefed by police, they seemed to have the shooter isolated, she said to the police after a short time. This was definitely a keep calm and carry on moment. One resident took to Twitter and said, armed security says, just carry on. Seems security has shooter in cordoned area and are not worried about wider threat. Security says we may hear more gunshots. Residents had reported hearing a series of loud bangs in the area before an armed response unit was sent in. A 27-year-old master's student at the University of Oxford who lives in Paradise Square said, "I saw a bunch of cops running down the road. I went outside to see what was going on, but the police told me to go in. They had shields and massive guns." A number of roads were closed in the area and residents warned to stay inside their homes. Some Oxford residents have taken to social media to warn people to steer clear of the area. "I heard some shots," the woman, who did not want to be named, added. "I heard more than 5 shots total, definitely. Then there was quite a period of silence and then some more shots. I don't know what happened at 1:15. It all happened at about 2:30. The police said stay away from the windows at the back of the house. I was coming home with my kids and police wouldn't let us into the street." One resident in Paradise Square told the Oxford Mail, "Flats have been evacuated and police were trying to talk someone down from their balcony. I heard about 5 gunshots and there was an armed response. Police told me to stay in my house," a spokesman for Thames Valley Police said. Armed response. Officers are at a residential property in Paradise Square following a report shortly after 1:15 p.m. today that a man had access to a firearm. Officers are currently negotiating with the man as they work to resolve the situation. Shots were fired from the property and police returned fire. The road is closed while officers are dealing with the incident and members of the public are asked to avoid the immediate area where emergency services are present. Superintendent Joe Kidman, Oxford Local Policing Area Commander, said people in Oxford will notice an increased police presence in the area while officers are dealing with the incident. If you have any concerns or wish to raise anything, please approach and speak to an officer or call the non-emergency number 101 feet, which is contained and taking place at a residential property.
Where the freaks at?